All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's shift gears. This is a video called "What Happened to Louis C.K." I kind of know what happened. You know, that happened a few years ago. We'll get into it. Not good. But I see that he's been kind of coming back now after his cancellation. So I'm kind of, excuse me, I'm sorry. So I'm curious. Let's see what we got here. This is by Joe Blow Originals.
With a joke, shall we? Here we go. Let us start this off with a joke, shall we? Here we go.
Yeah.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Louie C.K. Ah, don't open the door!
Oh, it's a joke. This is so does you? I wonder if you guys actually know what happened.
CK's brilliant stand-up routine is full of hilarious, relatable, everyday observations and some self-deprecating bodily humor mixed in.
I gotta say, I love Louis C.K.'s humor. He's just like me. Just kidding. Nah, I like his humor a lot, though. I think he's a really funny guy. You know, what he did was a little messed up, but, you know, I think he can recover from it.
His interesting, brutally honest take on family, religion, politics, and sex. Really?
And he says slurs sometimes. So, I mean, he can't get any more base than that. I remember when he did his show, Louie, which it's so funny. The show Louie is very funny. I thought the comedy's a little bit more niche, but it's very funny. Or I guess was funny. Because it was canceled. I remember he like made his daughters white, obviously, because he's white. But they made his ex-wife black, and then just when people are like, "Why is she black? What the fuck?" He's like, "Who cares? It's an actor. Like, shut up." What did he do? It was something in the vein of he would like start choking the chicken in front of women without them. Without their consent. It was without their consent. It was not good. We'll see more, but
nasty, strange, gross stuff that made us all laugh. But turns out some of it was based in reality. But it's not all fun and games in the world of comedy. Often there is sadness and shame and perversions, which comedian Louis C.K. was able to expose about himself in more ways than one. But his jokes made us think. They opened our minds to a deeper truth about ourselves and the whole freaking universe.
Yeah, the one joke he made about how his wiener looks like a pig's tail, and it's always all red because like it's between his fat legs. I identify with that one.
One of the biggest, most respected names in comedy, and deservingly so. But, you know, like I said, underneath his sweaty t-shirts and all of his silly jokes were deep, dark secrets that many knew about, but few voiced. Until it was hashtag trendy. Louis C.K. may have been a cute, family-friendly animated dog on the silver screen, but he was a dirty, dirty dog behind closed doors. And on stage, like right in front of us, hiding in plain sight. This comic genius had a slow burn rise to fame that all came crashing down when tales of his disturbing behavior came to light. And suddenly the culture of cancel culture canceled him. But then he won a Grammy. So now it's time to ask the question that's been on everybody's mind. What the fuck happened to Louis C.K.?
Wow, they kicked his ass. What happened? What, did he key somebody's Camaro? What did the guy do?
But to truly understand what the fuck happened to Louis C.K., we must begin at the beginning, and the beginning began when he was born on his birthday, 1967, Washington, D.C. His stage name is not so different than his real name. He goes by Louis C.K. because his name is Louis C.K., which is pronounced C.K. So he just changed.
Oh, really? That's weird. I didn't know that was his real name. That's bizarre. Okay. Kind of cool, I guess. Okay.
Changed his name from this spelling to just the letters C and K, making everything easier for everybody. He would gain an early appreciation for comedy by listening to the albums of George Carlin, Richard Pryor, and Bill Cosby. While growing up in Boston,
Sorry, I must have picked up a little more from Bill Cosby than he thought, huh? Not quite as bad as Bill Cosby, but Jesus.
He soon discovered his passion for film, and at the age of 17 he made a short film called Trash Day, which actually garnered him some attention from the NYU Film School, but instead of going to that prestigious college, he chose to pursue his other passion, stand-up comedy. At the age of 18, he would attend his first open mic night in Boston.
Wow, that's him at 18? He looks kind of old for 18, man. I'm just saying. Maybe that's just a style of yesteryear, you know? Maybe it's just a style.
But it did not go well, and that scared poor little Louie away from performing again for around 2 years. He would hone his act.
Yeah, man, I mean, doing comedy is not easy. It's very difficult, like, specifically stand-up, right? Like, you can make a bunch of jokes on a YouTube channel about your butthole and your anus and everything, that's fine, but, like, actual comedy, like, stand-up comedy is, like, difficult, you know? It's not an easy thing to do.
And eventually get back on stage and start to build a bit of an audience around the Boston comedy clubs, while appearing with fellow comedian Dennis Leary, who apparently liked Louis C.K.'s material so much that he apparently stole one of his jokes, or just happened to have the same thoughts come to his mind. But
I don't know what joke you're talking about, but there is also a thing like where people will hear something and then they'll forget where they heard it from, and then they might even think that they made it themselves. I think that they, like Dane Cooks was stealing or stole something from Louis C.K. as well, and then he had him on Louis to talk about it, and it was like an accidental thing. Like you just kind of hear it and you don't even realize it, you know? So, you know.
We'll never know. And this joke is how being an a-hole is just a far better life when you just fully embrace your a-holishness.
I think you saw me do them. I know you saw me do them, and I think they just went in your brain.
Yeah, here it is.
You meant to do it.
By 1989, Louis.
That was a bit with, but it was with Dane Cook where he was talking about that. That was actually him talking to Danish Cookerland. Oh,
TK moved to New York City to fully embrace comedy, because apparently that's what you do, even appearing on such shows as An Evening at the Improv and Star Search, while also opening for Jerry Seinfeld.
Whoa,
in addition to following
the
his
Airplane
passion
Peanuts
of
guy?
making short films throughout the 90s. As almost every comedian in the early 90s has done, CK would try to get on Saturday Night Live, SNL. But that didn't happen, and that really took a toll on him, as he planned on completely quitting comedy if no good gigs came along soon.
You know what's crazy, man? I didn't know that this Tim Robinson, right? The guy with I forget what the show's called, but it's pretty funny. But anyway, I didn't know he was on SNL, but they didn't like him on there, so they made him a writer. Like they didn't like him as an actor. It's kind of sad stuff, man. Sad stuff.
Soon. Luckily, there was a new late-night host in town that was willing to hire fresh young writers. And that's how Louis C.K. was hired as a writer for Late Night with Conan O'Brien. By
Conan's such a nice guy, you know? He's such a good guy, you know what I mean? So it's too bad he, Leno fucked him right in his butthole. His little daddy duty hole. What's happening here? So, fucking stole a show back.
1995, Louis C.K. was an in-demand writer, having written for The Late Show with David Letterman and Howie Mandel's Sunny Skies. Louis would use those talents to become the head writer for one of the best sketch comedy shows ever aired on television, The Dana Carvey Show, even though it only aired for 7 episodes. This series would help launch the TV Funhouse sketches that made their way over to Saturday Night Live, SNL, which also caused Louis C.K. to finally make his way over to Saturday Night Live, SNL, to help write some of the TV Funhouse shorts, before eventually hosting 4 times. With his star on the rise, Louis C.K. would appear on HBO Comedy Half Hour, before being hired to write for The Chris Rock Show, another one of the greatest sketch
Chris Rock had a show? Remember Everybody Hated Chris? That was good.
comedy shows ever made, where he would be nominated for 3 Emmys for writing, eventually winning in 1999. This collaboration would prove to be strongest for CK, as he and Chris Rock would collaborate on several projects, including co-writing the Heaven Can Wait remake Down to Earth in 2001, which tanked with critics yet still managed to grab $71 million off a $30 million budget, although most people agreed that Chris Rock's talents were wasted on the watered-down PG-13 screenplay. Then Louis C.K. stepped into the director's chair for the film Pootie Tang. Louis said that he was fired from the project during post-production, and says that although he enjoys parts of the movie, he agrees with Roger Ebert, who called the film a train wreck. He put his thumbs in the downward direction.
How could a movie called Pootie Tang be bad? You know what I mean? That sounds incredible.
Even with its modest $7 million budget, Pootie Tang only made $3.3 million at the box office.
Damn.
Shh, it's supposed to be boring. I'm trying to put you to sleep, that's why it's boring.
But in the world of comedy, Louis C.K. still had much respect. He would land gigs for writing Cedric the Entertainer Presents, while landing his second HBO...
Jesus Christ, I didn't know he wrote fucking Cedric the Entertainer Presents. I really didn't. I didn't know he had such like a fucking illustrious writing career. But I guess that's how most comedians are, right? They write a bunch of like they do a lot of comedy writing first.
No half-hour special on their one-night stand weekly program. And he even took a small role in a film called London.
Do you even have to be any good to be a writer? for like a sketch comedy show, though? I know that sounds like a weird question. You'd be like, of course you do. The only reason I ask is because I forget. Oh, I watched Barry, and they had like a room full of like writers, and like they just kind of play off of each other. They don't even necessarily, you know, do anything constructive. They're just like playing off each other a lot, you know. Wow, I just fucking lost. But they just play off each other a lot of times. You're just kind of there to, you know, give feedback and help people come up with different ideas. Like the actual writers, they'll call them. The
Chris
actual
Evans,
writers.
Jason Statham, and Jessica Biel. I didn't see it, did you? With the success of CK's HBO special, the network asked him to develop a series, which would lead to him creating Lucky Louie in 2006.
This show wasn't
a half-hour weekly sitcom using the traditional 3-camera setup that would take full advantage of the freedom airing on HBO had to offer. Unfortunately, the series was canceled after just 1 season. It was around this time that Louie...
Yeah, it was too much like a sitcom. It didn't really work out too well for Louie. It tried to have that. It tried to have like the energy from Family Matters, but with the kind of dryness of Louis C.K., which I like a lot.
Louis C.K. was able to get back into making his short-form videos, which he really loved making. Although now they would include more documentary-oriented material, with Louis C.K. acting as host, with his dry sense of humor. By 2007, Louis C.K.'s fame was beginning to become massive. People started listing his name along with the people he grew up listening to, especially after the release of his hit HBO special, Shameless. Although he would follow that up by reuniting with Chris Rock in the writer's room for
He wrote Shameless? I had no idea.
I Think I Love My Wife, which would be another failure at the big screen, only making 13 off an $11 million budget, with critics saying that it was
How the fuck is that a failure? I don't get it. And that's on release day. That's the thing that blows my mind about like movies and TV shows, or whatever, movies really. Is that like if you don't make all your money back in the box office, you're a failure. It's like, why? That's not the only way people make money. But okay.
Waste of Chris Rock and Louis C.K.'s talent. 2008 would see Louis C.K. release his next stand-up comedy special, Shoot Out, which would hit number 5 on the Billboard Top Comedy Album chart thing, while also appearing in roles in films such as Diminished Capacity, Welcome Home Roscoe Jenkins, Role Models, and the Ricky Gervais film The Invention of Lying.
I'm black. I knew it.
Oh, you're very light-skinned, but I can see it.
I always wanted a black friend.
Me too.
But it would be back on the small screen where Louis C.K.'s life was about to
I'm also black. Isn't that incredible?
change. After putting in the time and work over the years, and pulling off small but lovable roles in shows like Parks and Recreation, he would launch his next show. This time simply titled Louie.
I loved Louie. It took a couple episodes for me to really get into it, but it's such a funny, good show. It really is. It's so funny. I think I bought it, all of it. I bought the show because I thought it was so good. It's just so funny. I liked it a lot. The humor, I think one of my favorite ones, and I hated the joke at first, but you kind of get into the humor, was when a lot of the show is about him, how he's a single dad now because him and his wife divorced, and he goes on this date with this young girl. She's a younger girl. That's why I called her young girl. I don't know what's happening anymore. And he's really nervous because she's so young, right? She wasn't like a child, you know. She was just younger. I think that she might have been like in her 20s or 30s or something. You know, he's an older guy. And he's at some point he was trying to impress her. He was going a little too far trying to impress her. And then at one point he's like, you know what? Why the fuck am I trying to impress you? I have the kids. I have a job. I have everything put together. You're the one that should be trying to impress me. And then after he like kind of goes on this whole rant, this like morally virtuous rant, he tries to kiss her, and then she gets on like a helicopter and tries to get away. It's just preposterous, but it's so funny. So it's just funny to me. It's funny to me.
On FX, back at a time when putting your show on FX was risky. In the show Louie, he would play a fictionalized version of himself, you know, a lonely single father who does stand-up. And this show, Louie, would feature some of the biggest names in comedy in guest roles. Louis C.K. says that he took a substantially reduced payment from FX in order to retain creative control, as he would serve as the writer of Louie, the director of Louie, the star of Louie, and even the editor of Louie. That's right, Louis C.K. was even clicking and cutting, a true artist who truly has a vision and makes it on all stages of production. You gotta respect that. And that gamble of taking full creative control would pay off. as the series would be nominated for 22 Emmys, winning 3, including 2 for Louis C.K.'s writing. This series would tackle more serious topics, while also being hilarious, including when Dane Cook would guest star as himself in a scene that dealt with how it seemed like Dane Cook had stolen a few jokes from Louis C.K.,
yep,
which
I like
may
that,
or
though.
may not be true.
It kind of made me like Dane Cook a little. I've never liked Dane Cook. I always thought he was unfunny. But I respected it, and I respected Louis for it, because it was giving Dane an out, because he was getting so much shit for copying Louis' jokes, you know? So, I respected that scene.
The show Louie was always funny because of Louis' natural demeanor. It just felt real, which at times kinda made you not like the character, but respected Louis C.K. for going there. Many compared it to the early work of Woody Allen, and you know what? They're kinda right. And I mean that as a compliment. The show is frickin' brilliant.
It's an artistic piece of art.
The success of Louie brought the star.
This was the scene. It fucking killed me, dude. He showed up, he put a whole suit on to go out to eat pizza. And I was so dumb. And then I remember, and this is so stupid. But then there was another point when they were out to eat. She had to go into the bathroom, so she went in there, and then he just waited outside the door for her like a fucking weirdo. Because he was so clingy. And some other guy started slamming on the door and being like, I gotta take a shit. But the guy sounded just like Louis. So the woman got out there and was like, why the fuck are you slamming on the door? And he's like, I wasn't me. It was somebody else. It was just funny.
To a whole
Yeah, Woody Allen comparison's a little sussy, huh?
new level. Suddenly, everybody wanted to work with Mr. C.K., appearing in films from legendary filmmakers including Woody Allen in that movie Blue Jasmine, and David O. Russell in that movie American Hustle, while also appearing alongside Robin Williams in The Angriest Man in Brooklyn, and Bryan Cranston in Trumbo. But his biggest success on screen would come by way of his voice, when he made that voice come out of a Jack Russell Terrier in the $894.3 million grossing animated extravaganza called The Secret Life of Pets.
What the fuck? The Secret Life of Pets is Louis C.K.'s biggest movie ever? There's no way that a dog movie... That's fucking insane. I guess it makes sense, because Louis does have that dog in him. I'll tell you that. Not good. Not a good kind of dog, okay? Like a pit bull. Or,
this film would spawn a sequel, The Secret Life of
Pets. A very
Pets
aggressive dog. Everybody who says pit bulls aren't aggressive, I mean, just smell the big stinky fart, you know? All I'm saying.
Although Louis C.K. would not reprise the role because of, well, we'll get to that later. By this time, Louis C.K.'s name alone would get a project greenlit. This would lead to him helping create such shows as Horace and Pete, Better Things, One Mississippi, and Zach Galifianakis' Emmy-winning Baskets, while also never wavering from that thing that people loved him for, his hilarious, brilliant, disgusting wit. With 2010's Hilarious, which would be nominated for 2 Emmys and win the Grammy for Best Comedy Album, and the FX special Live at the Beacon Theater, which would win the Emmy for Outstanding Writing for a variety.
My grandma wanted to watch The Secret Life of Pets just because the main character and I have the same name. Oh, Caitlin? Is that what it is?
Variety, music, or comedy special. Also, the independently released Word, live at Carnegie Hall, and there was also the HBO special Oh My God.
Bro, why do people get so offended when people rightfully criticize pit bulls for being aggressive animals? I don't understand.
Win an Emmy for Outstanding Writing for a Variety special, followed by the FX special Live at the Comedy Store, which would win an Emmy for Outstanding Writing for a Variety special. He also had some pretty funny stand-up on Netflix. He became the go-to guy for any comedy-related special because he was such a respected figure in the community. He would pop up in things like I Am a Comic, followed by HBO's Talking Funny, CNN's The History of Comedy, and 2020's Showtime series The Comedy Store. But then it all came to a crashing halt.
It did come. It definitely did that.
As respected in the world of comedy as Louis C.K. was, there seemed to be a little secret in the community that everyone knew about, but barely anybody commented on. Much like Bill Cosby before him, but not as bad, but still
not nearly as bad.
The fame and clout
still
he
bad,
had achieved through his amazing career meant that the seedier things he found enjoyment in were often glossed over.
What, a guy can't jack off in front of a girl without her consent anymore? What kind of world are we living in? A world that protects women and treats them equally? This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. If only I was born sooner. Only I was born a little sooner, then I could have been a horrible, abusive piece of shit.
Were rumors and rumbles here and there, such as a 2012 Gawker article about a beloved comedian who would like to do some unsavory things, and everybody kind of whispered that maybe Louis C.K. was one of the usual suspects there. Over the years, many publications would ask...
The usual suspects. Wasn't another guy that did bad stuff in there? What's the guy's name? He was gay, and he would hit on little... Well, not little boys, but like 16-year-old boys or whatever. Like fucking... I forgot his name. Not appropriate stuff, though. Hot take, it's inappropriate. Don't do it.
Mr. C.K. about these alleged incidents, and he would always give some sort of answer like, I don't talk about rumors, or I want to focus on the work and leave my personal life out of it. No comment.
What do you want me to say? I mean, I'm sorry.
In late 2017, the world had changed, with the October article detailing years of sexual abuse by mega producer Harvey Weinstein against numerous women. It was the birth of the hashtag MeToo movement.
Yep. Kevin Spacey, that guy. That guy, very inappropriate.
One big-name celebrities began falling like disgusting dominoes when their criminal and perverted private lives came to light. And then, in November of 2017, the New York Times posted their article with the headline, Louis C.K. is accused by 5 women of sexual misconduct.
Damn.
The article would detail several instances of Louis C.K. inviting aspiring female comedians to his hotel room for a post-show drink, and then once in the room, relaxed, he would ask these women if he could take out his Jack Russell Terrier, his Louie, his penis. And because he's a funny man, these women mostly thought he was joking, because, you know, that's his style of...
I guess that's not funny, it's terrible. I didn't even think of it like that. I'm pretty sure some of them even said no, and he still did it. It's like, can I jerk off in front of you? And they were like, no, and then he would still do it. It's
humor.
Weird.
But Mr. Louie was not joking. And when they laughed it off, his pants just came off, getting completely naked and touching his Louie Jack Russell Terrier in front of them, much to their horror. While others said they would try and leave, and he would stand in front of the door, continuing, blocking them until he was done. What the f***?
And that's why I never felt the need to help you not be hated by a lot of people.
Much to the surprise of everyone, because the playbook for these things is to deny. The very next day, Louis C.K. would release a statement where he would confirm the story was 100% accurate. C.K. finally acknowledged what he did to these poor women, saying that he never thought it was wrong because he always asked first. He thought it was consensual, he says. But now...
Yeah, and then I remember, it was a while ago that I read through it, but he was talking about how he didn't really realize the power dynamic of, like, him being their boss and being in front of them and being, like, asking them this question that would make them uncomfortable. And, you know, I tend to believe him that he didn't mean anything negative by it. Still a disgusting thing to do, obviously, but...
Now he realizes that what he did to these poor women was put them in an impossible, disgusting situation.
Yeah.
His letter sounded good, but it was also a bit of a nothing burger when you realize that CK is a talented wordsmith. That's what he does. It's what has made his stand-up so popular and relatable. But the actions he was accused of, including having his manager call and threaten some of these women by saying that they would never work in this business again.
Jesus.
They went public with their horrible experiences. This was far more serious than a
I didn't even know that part. That's fucked up. What the fuck? I didn't even know that.
Golly, I didn't know. I'm sorry. But yeah, this letter of apology...
Well, I guess I don't believe him anymore. Jesus Christ, what the fuck?
In the mind of many, it was not enough. After this, Louis...
Not with that part in mind. I didn't know that.
CK would be dropped by his management company and
Good.
agent, while FX severed all ties with the comedian, canceling Louie, which was a great show, but f*** it. This also included canceling an animated show called The Cops that he was working on, and canceling a film that was fully completed called I Love You Daddy, about an older man falling in love with a much younger woman. It was completely pulled from distribution.
Wow, it has a really incredible cast too. Jesus Christ. I wonder if they'll put that back out
And
there.
I haven't seen this one, but I believe some people said that there's a scene or a character who likes doing that thing that Louis likes to do in front of people that don't really want to see. You know, the thing. I heard it's in this movie.
Dude, their cast on this is insane. John Malkovich, old Louis C.K. Looks like, what was that guy, Charlie from, not from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, It's Always Sunny. I forgot his name. This woman here. That other girl from Kick-Ass. I'm really good at names. Chloe? Is there a name? That sounds like a name. I don't know.
But I don't know. Is it? Have you seen it? I don't really want to watch it. Plus, Mr. Louis C.K. was dropped from the already in production The Secret Life of Pets 2.
Damn.
With the voice of Max being recast with Patton Oswalt,
That's
as well as
choice.
being redubbed in the Disney show Gravity Falls.
What?
Louis C.K. would...
He was in Gravity Falls? I watched. That was a great show, by the way. I can't believe they got rid of it. They really needed to make a season 3. Gravity Falls was like one of the best. Wow, that's crazy.
Step out of the limelight for a while, no doubt in a blatant out-of-sight, out-of-mind move, but it wouldn't last very long. In August of 2018, there were reports of Louis C.K. going back and doing what he does best, stand-up comedy, at New York's famed Comedy Cellar. These gigs would become hot tickets in the city, often selling out. In 2020, he would release his first stand-up special titled Sincerely Louis C.K., where he would address the allegations to a sold-out crowd in his hometown of Washington, D.C.
Interesting.
How was 2018 and 19 for you guys?
Of course.
It's a really interesting, I don't know if it's just really interesting, but I think it's a conversation to be had about like what is, can you come back from something like this? You know, and based on the severity, can you be reformed? I mean, we're not talking about somebody who like actually raped somebody. What he did was still wrong. I'm not saying it wasn't. My point is that, you know, there's a severity thing as well. You know, I think that the severity is something that we have to talk about. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Like, you know, can you come back from something like this? I think one of the this is gonna sound like I don't know if that's not gonna sound weird. I think that men have problems. I think men have a lot of fucking problems. You know, I think that there is something almost inherent to men that's just kind of disgusting almost. And that we've had to socialize men away from like disgusting behavior. And then you might think like, no, Papa God, that's ridiculous. But if you look back at so many cultures that were dominated by men, even our own culture, even now, but you know, let's just say 20 years ago, especially, or even more, things like, well, especially historically, things like rape and slavery were okay. You know, it was okay to own a person. As long as they weren't part of your group. It was okay to rape women as long as they weren't part of your group. There was such a weird normalization around like just not being human. And I think that like society had to and should and does a decent job at socializing men away from like disgusting, entitled, like, you know, emotionally unintelligent behavior. And I feel like this is an example of that, because you had the Hollywood industry is an industry that normalizes and justifies being able to weaponize your power as a popular person, as a man, to get what you want, to extort something out of women. And it's like, so like, even look at age of consent laws nowadays, like 16, 17, that's disgusting. Why is it like that? You know, why aren't, and who are the people that are going to have the most power to change? It's going to be men, you know? So, you know, it's just like a fucking, I don't know, man. Men are something else. You know, I know men have issues, but like when it comes to like male advocation, but I feel like men are, I don't know, man. I'm happy to be a man. I think if I was a woman, I'd be afraid for my fucking life every day. I don't know, man. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy. You know, me personally, I mean, I'm not gonna forgive Louie. He didn't do anything to me. You know, I'm a guy. He probably wouldn't want to jerk off in front of me. But like, it's something that like I could, you know, almost see past, I guess. But then like, I'm a guy, right? So I probably never, and hopefully will never understand what it's like to be put in this like situation like this, you know. So I don't know.
Of course, controversy would erupt around the release when Louis C.K. was not only nominated but also won the Grammy for Best Comedy Album. He would follow that up with a massive sold-out tour across the country in 2021 and 2022, along with a new one-hour special simply titled Sorry.
When did we start measuring deaths in 9/11s? When did that become the new how many football fields long is it? Per mass death. How many 9/11s was World War II? Can we look it up? I know the Holocaust was 2,000 9/11s.
That's crazy.
He would receive a Grammy nomination for Best Comedy Album, followed by returning to the film world with the 2022 film 4th of July, that many critics had a hard time enjoying as they felt that it was just Louis C.K. trying to justify his actions. In 2023, he would release his next stand-up comedy special, Louis C.K. Back to the Garden. So the question is, where are we with Louis C.K.? He is undoubtedly one of the best stand-up comedians of all time, with his disgusting dry wit and his keen observations. And his work on the big screen and small screen has often been very relatable. But his actions off-screen is where everything kinda ends. We often ask ourselves if we can separate the artist from the antics, but sometimes it's hard. As far as Louis C.K. is concerned, I still find his material quite funny. But in the back of my mind, I am thinking, As an audience member, you have to ask yourself, are you part of the problem for still enjoying this entertainment from somebody like Louis C.K.? Or you can ask yourself, are you willing to give somebody a second chance after they acknowledge and apologize for their mistakes and at least try their best to do actions to make things better?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the severity. Unlike what Bill Cosby did can, like, never be forgiven, but Louis C.K., for me personally, like, I mean, like, you know, not as bad as Bill. He didn't drug and rape women like Bill Cosby, you know what I mean? I feel like you can't come back from that. It's disgusting, but I understand, like, you know, the other shit, I mean, I think that you could probably, I don't know if it's like inherent to him, you know? I think it's a disgusting thing that he enjoyed doing and it never should have happened. And the biggest issue is that he would pressure these women and use his position of power to bully them into getting what he wanted or to not speak up, and that's disgusting. And that's also a problem with, like, the way that the atmosphere was constructed. And so, like, you know, for me personally, I get why nobody, if you're like, I never would want to interact with or look at this guy's shit ever again, I think he's disgusting, perfectly understandable. But for me, I could still enjoy a good Louis C.K., you know? I could still enjoy a good Louis C.K. thing.
Has Louis C.K. done enough to make things better? That's up to you, and it's up to those women, actually.
Oh. Yeah, I'm going. Yep.
I doubt his career will ever get back to what it used to be. It's kind of hard to imagine Louis C.K. voicing a family-friendly film ever again, but I doubt he even wants to. But he's back to doing what he has always been best at, standing up and telling jokes into a microphone. Love him or hate him, Louis C.K. is here to stay. So you are allowed to give a f*** about what the f*** happened to Louis C.K., if you want to. But all
The bus driver episode was so funny.
things
The bus driver went on, like, I think to Sagdagos or something. Couldn't get the, because it was, he shouldn't have been driving there because his bridges are too low. I think it's Sagdagos, which is the northern state. Somewhere on Long Island, I forget what it's called. I live here, you'd think I would know. But the funny part about that story is that they made the bridges really low so that buses from the inner city couldn't get there because they hated black people. The people who designed Long Island hated black people and didn't want them to be there. They didn't want them to. They didn't want them to enjoy the beach. It's a real story. This is a real. That's an actual human thing that happened. It's a real. Yeah. So they designed the bridges so that the bus full of black kids would not be able to go and enjoy the things. They wouldn't. They weren't. I have access to being a people. So that's an interesting thing, huh? Oh, okay. Fuck me in the ass. Crazy story. It's the Sagdagos. Yep. That's what I'm saying, man. My balls are sagging.
considered, like it or not, he's doing just fine.
I don't know. I don't know any more things. Those are all the things I know.
All right. Well, cool. Good video. I like
JK's production super chatted $2. Stay tuned.
Very good. Thank you so much. Gravity Falls wasn't canned. The creator didn't like the work cycle he was in for Gravity Falls, so he made sure it would only last 2 seasons. Oh, that sucks.